The Śūraṅgama Sutra, Volume 4, 41. You must first understand two absolutes regarding initial resolve for enlightenment. What are the two absolutes regarding initial resolve for enlightenment? Ananda, the first absolute, is that if you wish to renounce the position of the hearer and cultivate the bodhisattva vehicle, and to enter the knowledge and vision of the Buddhas, you must carefully consider whether the resolve on the cause ground and the enlightenment on the ground of fruition are the same or different. Ananda, it is impossible, while on the cause ground, to base one's cultivation on the mind that is subject to arising and ceasing, when in quest of the Buddha vehicle, which neither arises nor ceases to be. For this reason, you should realize that all composite dharmas belonging to the material world will decay and disappear. Ananda, contemplate the world. What composite dharmas will not wear out? But I have never heard of empty space wearing out. Has anyone ever heard of the disintegration of the void? Why not? Empty space is not a composite, and it can never wear out. While you are in your body, what is solid is of earth, what is moist is of water, what is warm is of fire, and what moves is of wind. Because of these four bonds, your tranquil and perfect, wonderfully enlightened, bright mind divides into seeing, hearing, sensation, and cognition. From its beginning to its end, you are immersed in the 5 layers of turbidity. What is meant by turbidity? Ananda, pure water, for instance, is fundamentally clear and clean, whereas dust, dirt, ashes, silt, and the like are basically solid substances. Such are the properties of the two. Their natures are not compatible. Suppose someone takes some dirt and tosses it into pure water. The dirt loses its solidity and the water is deprived of its transparency. The resulting cloudiness is called turbidity. Your 5 layers of turbidity are similar to it. Ananda, you see that space pervades the 10 directions. There is no division between space and seeing. And yet space by itself cannot identify its own substance, and seeing alone has nothing to register awareness of. But the two become entangled in falseness. This is the first layer, called the turbidity of time. So now I am like a wanderer who suddenly encounters a divine king, who bestows upon him an elegant house. Even though he has obtained a mansion, he has to enter through a door. I only hope the Tathagata will not withhold his great compassion in instructing those of us in the assembly who are covered by darkness, so that we may renounce the small vehicle and attain at last the Tathagata's nirvana without residue, the fundamental path of resolve. May he enable those who are still learning to know how to subdue the age-old habit of seeking to manipulate conditions to one's advantage, to obtain dharani, and to enter into the knowledge and vision of the Buddhas. Having said this, he made a full prostration, and together with the members of the assembly, single-mindedly awaited the Buddha's compassionate instruction. Your body appears in full, with the 4 elements composing its substance, and from this, seeing, hearing, sensation, and cognition become firmly defined. Water, fire, wind, and earth fluctuate between sensation and cognition, and become entangled in falseness. This is the second layer, called the turbidity of views. Further, the functions of memory, discrimination, and verbal comprehension in your mind bring into being knowledge and views. From out of them appear the 6 defiling objects. Apart from the defiling objects, the consciousness would lack attributes. Apart from cognition, the objects would have no nature, but they become entangled in a falseness. And if day and night there is endless arising and ceasing as your knowledge and views continually wish to remain in the world, while your karmic patterns constantly move, you to various places, This entanglement becomes a falseness, which is the fourth layer, called the turbidity of living beings. Originally, your seeing and hearing were not of different natures, but a multitude of defiling objects has divided them into crude differences. These natures have mutual awareness, but their functions are in opposition. Sameness and difference arise, and they lose their identity. This entanglement becomes a falseness, which is the fifth layer, called the turbidity of a lifespan. Ananda, you now want to cause your seeing, hearing, sensation, and cognition to return to and tally with the eternity, bliss, true self, and purity of the Tathagata. You should first decide what the basis of birth and death is, by relying on the perfect, tranquil nature which neither arises nor ceases. By means of this tranquility, influence the empty and false arising and ceasing, so that it is subdued and returns to the source of enlightenment. The attainment of this source of bright enlightenment, which neither arises nor ceases, is the mind of the cause ground. Then you can completely realize cultivation of and certification to the ground of fruition. To do that much is like purifying muddy water by placing it in a quiet vessel, which is kept completely still and unmoving. The sand and silt settle, and the pure water appears. That is called the initial subduing of transitory defiling afflictions. The complete removal of the mud from the water is called the eternal severance of fundamental ignorance. When clarity is pure to its very essence, then no matter what happens, there is no affliction. Everything is in accord with the pure and wonderful virtues of nirvana. The second absolute is that if you definitely wish to bring forth the resolve for body, and to be especially courageous and dedicated in your cultivation of the bodhisattva vehicle, you must decisively renounce all conditioned phenomena. You should carefully consider the origin of afflictions, who creates and who endures the beginningless creation of karma and perpetual rebirth. Ananda, if in your cultivation of body you do not carefully consider the origin of affliction, you cannot realize where the location of the upside-downness of the empty and false sense organs and sense objects is. If you don't even know their location, how can you subdue them and reach the level of the Tathagata? Ananda, consider someone who wants to untie a knot. If he can't see where the knot is, how can he untie it? But I have never heard of anyone unbinding empty space. Why not? Because emptiness has no form of appearance, and so there are no knots to untie. But now your visible ears, eyes, nose, and tongue, as well as your body and mind, are like 6 thieving matchmakers who plunder the jewels of your own household. And thus, from beginningless time, because beings and the temporal and spatial world have been bound up together, beings are unable to transcend the material world. Ananda, how do we define beings and the temporal and spatial world? Temporal refers to change and flow. Spatial refers to location. You should know, by now, that north, east, south, west, northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, above and below are space. Past, present, and future are periods of time. There are 10 directions in space and 3 periods of time. All beings come into being because of false interaction. Their bodies go through changes, and they are caught in the temporal and spatial combinations of this world. However, although there are 10 directions in space, those known in the world as north, south, east, and west are the only ones that can be clearly fixed. Above and below have no position. The intermediates have no definite direction. Determined clearly to be 4 in number, they are then combined with the 3 periods of time. 3 times 4, or alternatively 4 times 3 makes 12. Increase this to the third place, from the tens through the hundreds to the thousands. The greatest possible efficacy of each of the 6 organs is 1,200. Ananda, you can thereby establish their value. Consider how the eyes see darkness behind and light in front.